But yes, who here has seen Godzilla, King of the Monsters? I saw this movie today. I was gonna see it yesterday, but I saw it today, and I gotta say, I really liked Avengers. I'm trying to remember all the movies that came out this year. I really liked Avengers. I really liked Detective Pikachu. But I have to say, this is my favorite movie of this year. Having said that, let me add a little footnote. I may have a slight bias, and because I'm a huge monster movie fan. I've loved these characters since childhood. Rodan, Mothra, all these characters. I've loved Godzilla since before we got the 1998 shitty Godzilla, which wasn't that bad. But so yeah, there might be a little bias, but this movie really caters to nostalgia, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. Nostalgia can be a good thing because this movie is full of fan service. Come to Iraq when it's 118 in the shade. Yeah, no thanks. I'll stay here in Florida. I plan on watching it tonight. Just so you know, recital mode, I may... There's not a whole lot of things you can really spoil in the movie, per se, because, I mean, it's everything you kind of already know. You expect, monsters, fights. But there are some... there might be some light spoilers during the conversation, so just be aware of that. It was flawed, hot mess, but still fun like sex. Look at Sonic Mania. I enjoyed it, but I think it didn't surpass the 2014 one. See, that's interesting, because I disagree. I really like the 2014 one. Don't get me wrong. I like that movie a lot. But about that movie, I have a lot of the same complaints that a lot of fans did. Was we didn't really get enough Godzilla, and they kind of zoomed away from the action most of the time. So, like, every time Godzilla was about to fight, suddenly it's on the news, and they shift to, like, the human story. This one still does that somewhat, but I didn't think it did it anywhere near as much. We got a lot more monster action. So I do like this one a lot better than the original one. By the way, is the music too loud? Because I could turn it off if it's annoying. I have all the Godzilla themes playing in the background. Kong Skull Island is my favorite in the series. I love Kong Skull Island. That was beautiful. Characters and story in this one are a bit all over the place. Well, we get Godzilla vs. Kong movie. It's already filming, yeah. We're getting that. And this one is filled with references to Skull Island and Kong. And that's not even a spoiler. Just from the beginning of the movie to the end. Like, every once in a while you'll get a mention of Kong or Skull Island or something's happening, and earthquake in Skull Island and Titans this and that. Dropped a like for you. I appreciate that. Music's fine for me. Cool. But yeah, it's funny because I saw this movie with my best friend and my fiance, who she usually goes to movies with me and enjoys them, but she's not a Godzilla fan. She doesn't know about this stuff. My friend doesn't know anything about Godzilla, so it was interesting hearing their points of view. And I kind of compare this movie to the Assassin's Creed movie. I know that makes no sense at first, but hear me out. Assassin's Creed was a movie that I thought was great. However, if you're not a hardcore Assassin's Creed fan, you're not going to enjoy it as much. It's for the fans. And that's kind of where I think Godzilla King of the Monsters falls. It's not a critic-friendly movie. I haven't even seen the review scores from critics yet. I can't imagine they're that good. But I think this is a movie that the real hardcore Godzilla fans that I consider myself part of are really going to love. Because in the original movie, I should say the original reboot from 2014, there's not a whole lot of classic Godzilla. It's Godzilla, but then you've got a monster, the Mutos, that are made up for that movie. So, like, where's King Ghidorah, who's, like, kind of like his arch nemesis? That's kind of, like, always been one of his main threats, and this movie really plays up that angle. Let me read some comments real quick. I have to say I'll be rooting for Kong when it drops. No, I don't want that. What I want out of Kong vs. Godzilla, because after you watch this movie, there is no way that Kong would ever stand a chance against, like, Godzilla at his best. It's not a possible fight. I think what's going to happen, and what I would like to see happen, is they fight each other at first, like a comic book story, that's versus, and then they have to team up against a bigger threat. Because really, they're both good guys, so why is one trying to kill the other? Apparently, there's a reference to Steve Martin from the original King of the Monsters and Godzilla 85 that I missed out. Huh, I didn't notice that. And this is a movie you have to see. If you're a huge fan and you like picking out all the little Easter eggs and references, you got to see this movie more than once. There was so much stuff in there that I just wanted to hit pause, because I know there's a lot of Easter eggs I missed. I saw a lot of references to other classic monsters, too. Godzilla references Kong. Kong director is directing Metal Gear Solid, ergo Metal Gear Rex is going to fight Kong and Godzilla. I'd be down. It's nowhere near as bad as critics are making it out to be. So let's look on Rotten Tomatoes, because I haven't even looked at the critic score. I always ignore that stuff before I watch movies, because I like to form my own opinions. I don't, because subconsciously you might get influenced. So let's load up Rotten Tomatoes and see. I don't have it on my screen here. Let's see. Rotten Tomatoes. Wow, it's at 39%. But, one curious thing. Sorry, I'm looking at it on my second monitor here. So this movie's at 39%, but let's look at the audience score. I'm willing to bet it's really high. Yeah, so this is exactly what I'm talking about. 39% critic review on Tomato Meter, 87% audience score. That's a huge margin. And that's exactly what I mean. If you're looking at this movie from like a critical point of view, it's going to be a lot harder to enjoy. But if you watch it as a Godzilla fan, which that's what I went in there, I just wanted to see the big classic monsters fight, and I got exactly that. I like the Mutos. We needed more new monsters, and they felt Toho. Glad they weren't one-shots. Yeah, and they do make references to the Mutos in this movie, too. It wasn't like they're part of this universe now. I'm cool with them teaming up. Well, they did hint at what may come in the post-credit scene. Yes, there is. I won't spoil that part, but there is one post-credit scene in this movie. I want more of an explanation for the giant woolly mammoth. I saw that too. So they're still making up some monsters. I don't recall a classic woolly mammoth in the original Rogues Gallery of monsters. But after I saw this movie today, I was so excited. I went and ordered for like $12 the Blu-ray for it was a double feature: Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah and Godzilla vs. Mothra Battle for Earth or something like that. I want to start collecting the classic ones. Have you seen Shin Godzilla? Yes, I have that. It's weird. That's in my review pile. I've been wanting to review that for a while. Poster for Godzilla vs. Kong is already out. Hell yeah. I always enjoyed Godzilla movies only for the monster fights. Never really cared about the humans. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Richard, because that's one thing I want to talk about in this movie is the humans. I usually don't care about the humans in these movies too much either. I didn't care about any of their stories in the first movie. Is someone talking? Hold on. Is this mute? Oh, there's an ad playing. Let me get rid of that. Sorry, there's an ad playing on my end on the other screen. But the humans in the first movie, I could care less about their story. It felt like that's one thing I didn't like, how they kept cutting back to the humans. But the humans in the first one didn't really matter all that much. I feel differently in this one. I actually like the human storyline in this because they actually played an important role, especially Dr. Someone remind me the name. Ken Watanabe's character, Dr. Something, the Japanese dude. He actually played a vital role in this movie. So the characters actually do important things, and humans are essentially responsible for what happens in this movie. It's humans' faults. And so they're a crucial part of the movie. So they've set it up story-wise, so you can't just remove the humans. And also another thing, if you just take out the human storyline, you're not really going to have, as a human being, you're not really going to have something to relate to story-wise. It's just going to be kind of an empty shell of a movie where it's just a bunch of CG fights. So it'll be a little shallow there. Review the first Godzilla movie in the 50s? Yeah, I plan to. I want to get to all those movies. Kurosawa, that's who I was thinking about. The Doctor, yeah. I like how they expanded upon the world in the sequel. Would it be enjoyable for someone that's never seen Godzilla before? Yes, Rogue Dragon, absolutely. If all you're expecting is... I want to use Transformers as an example, but maybe that's not the best because the story in Transformers is really weak. But what I mean is, you watch Transformers and you're just expecting a popcorn flick with giant robot action, right? This is the monster equivalent, and it more than delivers. So you don't have to be a Godzilla fan to enjoy it, but it is best enjoyed as a Godzilla fan. I'm sick of fans saying it's a Godzilla movie as a defense for weak human story. It's disrespectful. Yes, a lot of G films have bad stories, but a lot of them has also really good stories. Yeah, but the human story in this one I thought was well done. I thought it was well done. Because I actually cared about some of the characters. In the first one, I didn't care about any of the people. And I got a page full of notes here. I was in the theater just like jotting down notes because I didn't want to forget anything. But this movie, like, it really ups the ante when it comes to the monsters, because basically the main villain, as all the trailers show, is essentially King Ghidorah, and you just get the sheer sense of scale with these things. So one thing that is way better than the first one, in the first one it had that what do you call it? It had that Transformers feel where they're all fighting, and sometimes you couldn't really tell what was happening because it's a very dark movie. This one fixes that completely. You always tell what's going on because everything's very color coded. So whenever there's like, when Godzilla's around, he's got his atomic breath, so he's charging up, everything's glowing blue. King Ghidorah, they use color really well. Everything's yellow when King Ghidorah's around because he generates electricity that's yellow. Mothra's like super colorful rainbowness. And then Rodan, they called him, I forgot what they referred to him in the movie, like the demon, something, the fire demon or something. But he's got these fiery wings. So everything's the use of color works really well to separate the monsters. So when there's a huge battle going on and all the CG monsters are flying around the screen, you know who's who and where's what. But the sheer sense of scale with these things, like Rodan, when he first pops up, the dude is flying with his giant wings, and as he's flying, buildings are just disintegrating, and people are just getting sucked up in the air and thrown away just from his wings and the power they have. So I love the rubber suits from the originals, but this is CG done right. Like, it just gives you a huge sense of epicness. Like Ghidorah, when he's flying around, they think he's a Category 5 hurricane, and then realize that's not a hurricane. That's Monster Zero. So this thing is just flying in the middle of the ocean, and everyone's picking up hurricanes, and it's just a three-headed dragon creating the illusion of a hurricane. It's insane. James Rolfe said it best in a review of a monster movie in the 50s. The monster is the big star of the show. All else is second. Yeah, I agree with that. How about the music, though? Soundtrack of the year. The original Godzilla theme from the 50s movie is in this movie. And, man, it was such a shame because, I went with people that aren't Godzilla fans, so I was sitting in the seat like, yes, all excited. No reaction around me. So that part kind of sucked, but that's not the movie's fault. My heart was pumping when the Godzilla theme kicked in. Yes, Godzilla vs. Astro Boy. Glad Rodan is badass again. Not happy about this version being a Starscream type character, though. Hope he gets a redemption arc. Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much on the exact plot line, but just to generalize what King Ghidorah is in this movie, I mean, Godzilla is basically the king of the monsters, right? King Ghidorah plays the role of, basically in ancient times, they had a feud, and King Ghidorah is unfrozen, so their feud is back, but there's a reason that Ghidorah has the name King in front of Ghidorah. He has this control. Not really a control over other monsters, but see, that's getting in spoiler territory. I don't want to say too much on that, but they give it a reason story-wise why he's called King Ghidorah, and Godzilla is also called King of the Monsters. There's an intense rivalry there, and I was really happy how Mothra was represented too, because Mothra is usually represented as a good character. All these characters have been villains at one point or another, but Mothra's typically been one of the good guys, and that angle's completely played up. So during the final battle, it's just, you have like Godzilla and Ghidorah going at it, Mothra and Rodan going at it. There's so much happening that it's at times overwhelming in a good way. It's something I felt we needed after the 2014 movie. Jet Jaguar, Godzilla beat the Avengers, Astro Boy wouldn't stand a chance. Yeah, there was a comic with Godzilla and the Avengers. I want Metal Gear Rex versus Godzilla. I was expecting Kong to get involved near the end. I was hoping he'd show up in the after credits scene. After credits, yeah, there's no Kong in this movie. You see him, but it's real quick, and there's references to Kong, but it's not just Kong. Just the fact that there's all these monsters throughout the entire planet that we didn't know about are just waking up and popping up. So Kong's mentioned several times. They're absolutely setting those little seeds in there. But this, at the same time, this movie, I feel like we all know that Hollywood's trying to do all this universe building thing with everything now. Ghostbusters wanted to do it. That movie was garbage. The Mummy was supposed to do it. Originally, before that, Dracula Untold was going to do the Universal monster movies. But they kept forcing in things that didn't make sense. Like in The Mummy, like they shoved in this organization that looks for monsters, and led by Dr. Jekyll, and I don't know, it just felt forced in. It felt like a completely different movie compared to the story of the Mummy, and then it was this weird Tom Cruise action flick. I hate the Mummy movie. I don't like it. I like the game. But this movie, it's a similar thing where there's that organization that it categorizes all these monsters and keeps track of them. It makes more sense within this universe. But I feel like they did a good job building this, not a multiverse, but building the cinematic universe between Kong, Skull Island, and Godzilla. This is how you do it right. It's just a natural progression. And you see that happening in the story. You know, Godzilla hasn't been seen since the first movie, which is 2014. So here, the whole time, they've been going around the world searching for what else is out there. And it leaves pretty big implications for the future of the series. Oh god, the Mummy was garbage. Did the movie hint at Mecha Godzilla? Not anything that I picked up on, unless I missed it. No, I did not see that. I want to say that... That's a spoiler. No, it really didn't. There's nothing specifically. I was like, ooh, Mecha Godzilla. But based on the after credit scene, I could see something mecha maybe happening. That's just me as a fan guessing the future. Nothing really states it. DC's trying to do it, and Marvel's the only one who's doing it well. At least the movie. Yeah, I agree with that. I want to see the rise of Super Godzilla, not turning into Space Godzilla. I'm wondering if we're going to see Godzilla Jr., the little baby Godzilla. Aside from Marvel, this is probably my favorite attempt at a shared universe. Mine too. It's ironic because Universal did crossovers with their monsters before Toho. Yeah, Universal was the first cinematic universe. They used to do it right. You know, you had all these actors crisscrossing into different movies. You had Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and Dracula all meeting. So they were the original ones to do it. That's why it's ironic that the new Dark Universe, they were going to call it, that it was just a complete failure. It was just, to me, alright, to have a good shared universe, and this is where Godzilla does it right. To have a successful shared universe, you got to plant those little seeds, right? Connecting different properties together. But on top of that, you have to have a good individual movie first. Kong Skull Island was good on its own. Godzilla was good on its own. King of the Monsters was good on its own. And at the same time, they sprinkled the little connected universe seeds. That was the problem with The Mummy. By itself, it wasn't a good movie. It was just a Tom Cruise action flick. They should have made it a, instead of trying to make it like a Marvel movie, they really should have made The Mummy a horror flick, as it should have been. That's how it originally was intended. A mecha is mentioned being built by Monarch in a newspaper headline in the end credits. Oh, see, I missed that. The end credits, it's just a bunch of quick newspaper headlines. And see, that's what I mean. You have to see it more than once to catch everything. What monsters from the Toho movies do you want to see next in future films? You know, William, it's funny you mentioned that because I would have said Rodan and Ghidorah, and I got them. Like, those are the ones I wanted from the beginning. I want to see the mechas. The mechas. So, have Mecha Ghidorah, have Mecha Godzilla. And let's go ahead and introduce all the weird alien stuff too, because there are aliens and other species in this universe. This movie confirms that, and this isn't really a spoiler because it's just kind of a quick. Basically, if you're not paying attention, you're gonna miss it. They briefly mention that they think Ghidorah may have landed long ago from outside the Earth, and he's like an invasive species, and that's why Godzilla has this rivalry against him. So they kind of allude to the fact that Ghidorah might not be from Earth. And if he's not, that implies that there's other crazy alien creatures out there. So I thought that was cool because in the old Godzilla classic movies, there's a lot of crazy shit that happens later with aliens and all this crap. So we haven't seen that yet. It's funny because I told my buddy that, and he's like, that's kind of unrealistic. And I was like, you're talking about a movie with a giant gold electric three-headed dragon. Like, I think realism was thrown out the window long ago. Oh, this movie. I saw the trailer and thought it looked boring and generic. I recommend you see it, Derek. I don't agree with anything you just said. I don't think it was boring or generic. I'd like to see Gigan and Megalon again. Bring in Gigan in the Final Wars version with chainsaw hands. So we might see Space Godzilla. Who knows? Anything can happen. But, hold on. Let me see what else I have in my notes here. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I talked about a lot of stuff that I thought was important here. Talked about the theme. Yeah, I said I think I covered most of the main things, but overall, like, the first movie had some boring parts, which I get it. It's story building. It was the first one that they were doing. This one, I didn't feel that way. I thought this one, there was always something happening. Whether if they were talking for a while, soon there would be like, I don't know, an alarm would sound and be like, oh no, this is a giant monster in another part of the world. What's happening? So are Godzilla and the other monsters intelligent? This movie, yes, absolutely. They definitely established that. They established that because you see it from a human point of view almost in this movie. Like, the humans in this movie, when they try to explain these creatures, just like if they were real in real life, we wouldn't know what they are. So it's just theories. So there's theories that they're these prehistoric beasts that react to like certain signals, like orcas. That's a huge part of the plot, by the way. The signals that these creatures communicate by. So that's a core essential part of the story. They think it's kind of like orca whales, where they can hear signals from far away, and that's how they move around and battle and meet each other. But at the same time, they also establish that they cannot be controlled. And you see that very well with Ghidorah, because the whole main idea of Ghidorah in the movie is that someone was trying to bring him back for a specific reason. And of course, no surprise, it kind of blows up in their face. It's like, oh damn, like this thing isn't doing what we intended it to do. It's just trying to destroy everything. Oops. And that's what I really want to see. Ghidorah was absolutely like a final boss of a video game, and he gave Godzilla a run for his money. Like, there's moments, like, you know Godzilla is going to survive the movie. Of course he is. And you also know there's a Kong vs. Godzilla coming up. But during the fight, sometimes you're like, damn, like, Godzilla is getting rocked. Like, he is getting messed up. But, just the whole final battle is just exhilarating. And it's fairly long, too. That's one thing in the 2014 one. I thought the final battle was over before it started, especially since most of it was just going back and forth to the people, and every once in a while you get a glimpse of Godzilla. Get some water, I'm dying. Alright, I hope Godzilla does his 0G dropkick from Godzilla vs. Megalon and Kong vs. Godzilla. What about Red Godzilla? Who's Red Godzilla? I don't think I'm familiar with Red Godzilla. I haven't seen all the classics, but you know what got me into Godzilla being a kid? Besides toys. Of course it was the toys. There were so many. But when I was a kid, I had Godzilla on the NES, and then Godzilla 2, which was also called King of the Monsters, on NES. And then I started getting the VHS. One of my buddies from childhood, we're still really close friends, he used to have this bag with movies, or what we would call the movie sack. So we'd go to the public library, and he'd sleep over, and we'd just get loads. We'd get a ton of movies, like 10 or 20 movies, and bring them back like a couple days later. But I used to always get the Godzilla VHS tapes. They came in those like clear plastic clamshells. I always used to get those from my local library, and I fell in love with that series, man. Like, monster movies have always been a thing for me, and that's another reason I like Power Rangers so much growing up, because that's kind of like monster movies where, you know, you have the Thunder Megazord, or I should specify like Japanese monster movies. They rock. They're awesome. This is a step beyond the rubber suits, though. Oh no, they say he's got to go. Go, Godzilla. There goes Tokyo. That was a cool surprise. I was hoping we could use his red atomic beam. Oh, it's when Godzilla turns red and glows. Yeah. That is in the movie. I thought you were talking about like an actual red Godzilla. Yes, Godzilla goes through multiple, I don't know if I want to call it forms, because he doesn't transform in this movie, but he goes through several phases of power level. So I was like, this is Dragon Ball Z. Like, Godzilla just went Ultra Instinct, and now he's invincible. But it's so satisfying. And when you see Godzilla just get his ass torn apart by King Ghidorah, and then he just gets up, and they zoom in on his face, and he just looks pissed. Like, you know shit's about to go down. Like I said, this movie, overall, the main themes of this movie is nostalgia and fan service. And some people might say those are bad things, because movies shouldn't rely on nostalgia and fan service, but damn, it makes for a really good time in the theater, so I'm quite alright with that. If you want to pick a movie apart from a critical point of view, yeah, you can find a lot of things. The human story might be a little shallow. Some things might not make sense from a plot point of view if you pick it apart, but if you just go in, like, it's a monster movie. If you go in just wanting awesome monster fights, and you have the bonus on top of being a Godzilla fan already, like, you're gonna walk out with a smile on your face. I'm gonna see this movie again, just because I want to pick out all the little details and all the things I've... Like, the mention of Mecha something in the newspaper. I didn't see that. So, I definitely want to pick those things out again. My first Godzilla movie was the original King of the Monsters, and as a kid, I actually liked the 98 movie. I'm sorry. Okay, the 98 movie. Let me get into that real quick, because that's a movie everyone says is bad, but when you were a kid, you liked it. I promise. Because I liked that movie as a kid. Everyone I talk to liked that movie as a kid. Even the ones that say it's bad now, sure, you can pick it apart now, but when I was a kid, I didn't know better. I enjoyed that movie. And it gave us the animated series, which was really cool, and the Godzilla in that one was the after credit scene, baby Godzilla that hatches. So I thought that was kind of cool. Red Spiral Ray reminds me of Kamehameha times 10. Glad they brought in one of Godzilla's secondary powers for the final battle. A lot of people don't know he has more than just his atomic breath. Yeah, I agree. Godzilla's powers have definitely shifted and changed over time. He's basically a giant radioactive unstoppable battery, in a way. 1998 was okay. Mix it with the CG of 2014, perfect. Yeah, what I didn't like about Godzilla, and yeah, Godzilla's been represented as a villain before, I get it. Like Shin Godzilla, the newer reboot on Toho's part, he's a destroyer of worlds, definitely. But I've always preferred Godzilla as a protector. I like seeing him as a giant monster that's trying to protect humans while destroying their homes, but still saving the world. That's the Godzilla I like. And that's represented really well here. He's really benevolent to humans in this movie. But it also goes into, and this is also part of the human storyline, it's realistic, or it's unrealistic to believe that innocent people don't get killed while Godzilla is trying to protect them. He's a giant radioactive dinosaur that's taller than skyscrapers. So clearly, while he's just walking around on a Sunday stroll, he's probably going to kill a couple people accidentally. So the human story in this movie, it has a lot to do with that aspect. But yes, the 1998 one, I didn't like how he was just roaming around destroying things, and then they kill it at the end. I was like, yeah, it's a Godzilla, but it's not the Godzilla. I could watch it still and enjoy it, but it's that in the Batman and Robin category. It's like I could still watch it and have a good time with a couple drinks, but it's not my Godzilla. What are you streaming tomorrow? Tomorrow I am streaming Mega Man NES and Mega Man 2 NES. So back to back, we'll be starting Mega Man. And I do have a couple videos coming this week. I've had a little bit of a delay because earlier in the week I was messing with all the age restriction crap with the Scorpion video, and then my AC broke this weekend. Like, I haven't been able to do shit this weekend. But this week I got a lot of stuff coming because next week I'm going to LA. So, and another thing that's funny about Godzilla, like, he's a big radioactive battery, but why, like, everyone around him has to be getting cancer eventually if he's generating that much radioactivity. I mean, think about the parallels of Godzilla and Goku. Blue rays, both fought red armies, both fight and push against strong enemies, both have a red ray. But you know what? I think that's more of a Japanese culture kind of thing, because they're both from Japan. I like the force of nature Godzilla, where he's just doing his thing while completely indifferent to humans. Yeah, and that's cool, kind of what he is like here, because he's really represented to be a good guy, but at the same time they mention that all these, they're called Titans in this universe. All these Titans are really forces of nature. And like I mentioned earlier in the review, that's represented really well. Like Ghidorah, they think he's a hurricane. Rodan's just a giant fire demon, so he pops out of a volcano of all things. So these are creatures that are large enough to where they're actually disrupting the planet on a physical level. The thing I hated the most about the Godzilla 2016 film was how so little we saw of Godzilla. They treat him like a Cloverfield monster. Yeah, and I agree with that. Although I do like that movie, that's one thing I wanted to see less of in this movie, and we get that. I think it helps the fact that there's more than just Godzilla in this movie. Not a fan of monsters eating people. When monsters have a higher purpose, then it makes them smarter, scarier. That said, interesting middle head and right head find left head's diet to be ew. Yeah, that's one thing I liked about King Ghidorah too. Like the heads, it shows that the heads have it's not just one mind. Each head has its own like personality, I guess you can say. Like one does something and the other one's like biting at it. So that was kind of cool. I'll be at E3 in spirit, but we're going next year. Where's Gamera? I hear Godzilla 84, 85 music in the background. Yes, I actually have a YouTube video playing called All Godzilla Themes, so I thought that'd be proper for this one. Hopefully it doesn't get copyright claimed. I know Toho is very adamant about copyright claims. Remake Godzilla vs. Charles Barkley. Wasn't that a comic book? Oh my god, what is that from? I remember that. Like, that's an actual thing. Charles Barkley versus Godzilla. I think it was a comic book. Correct me if I'm wrong. Which reminds me, I know James from Cinemassacre, they did a rental review on this movie. I haven't watched it yet. Like I said, I don't really watch reviews before I do them. Did everyone forget that Godzilla is effectively immortal? Every time he dies, he either comes back or had offspring somewhere. That's true. It was an ad and a commercial. I remember a comic book for some reason. Saw it on Desk of Death Battle. I think it was from Dark Horse. I like that name, Super Godzilla Jr. Awesome. Angry Joe, too. Yeah, I haven't seen any of those guys' reviews. I always watch Angry Joe's reviews and James Rolfe. Although, I gotta say, I've been an Angry Joe fan for a while. I like some of his content. I like most of his content, but it's funny because his movie reviews, like 90% of the time, I disagree. Which, that's fine. I mean, that's the thing about movie reviews. You don't have to agree with the reviewer to enjoy their content. But, yeah, I usually don't agree. So I'm curious where he stands on this movie, whether he liked it or not. I think he would have liked it. But, like I said at the beginning of the review, I really liked Avengers Endgame. I thought Avengers Endgame was awesome. And I know it's two different kind of movies, so I'm not comparing the two. But that was my favorite movie this year. To me, as a Godzilla fan and a comic book fan, Godzilla King of the Monsters is now my favorite movie this year. I absolutely loved this movie. But yeah, anyone can enjoy it. Anyone can go watch it and enjoy it. But if you're a Godzilla fan, that's where you're really, really going to like it. And you're going to want to watch it more than once. They did a good job catching Mothra's pacifist nature. She was just webs up people like Spider-Man and never tried killing Rodan, only tried knocking him out. Yes, I like that about Mothra. When at the beginning, like these men are trying to shoot at her because obviously they're scared. They don't know what it is. So she starts throwing webs, and the whole time I'm just like, don't kill anyone. You're a good guy. Don't kill anyone. So she's definitely a pacifist monster. And it was so cool, like, seeing her and Godzilla together because they definitely, once they figure out how Godzilla communicates, or how all these creatures communicate, they start examining that Mothra and Godzilla have an actual relationship. Like, they know each other. Like, they know they're not a danger to each other. So it's almost like they describe it as a symbiotic relationship. Hey, Adrian, welcome, man. And NotAnother Game Collector, I know you haven't seen Godzilla King of the Monsters. I know you would enjoy it. John Wick 3 is my favorite so far. I haven't seen that one yet. It's funny because I actually hadn't seen any of the John Wick movies, and everyone's always harassing me like, you need to watch them, you'll love them. I saw 1 and 2 like last week, I think it was. They were awesome. I can't believe I waited that long. But no, I have not seen John Wick 3 yet. Which side is Rodan on? It was never made clear in the trailers. Definitely on the bad side. Yeah. In this movie, overall, and there's shades of gray, because you got to think they're animals, essentially. So there's territorial issues and all that stuff. But overall, just to generalize it, Godzilla and Mothra, good. Ghidorah and Rodan, bad. And those aren't the only monsters in the movie, but those are really the main ones that make up the story. Everyone else is just kind of like, they're there, but they're not really part of the main story. The local comic book store I live near, made a little model of Godzilla attacking a ship while holding a train. That's awesome. You need to watch Vampire Hunter D. Yeah, that's on my list. A lot of people have been telling me that. People have been telling me to watch Vampire Hunter D since I did my Castlevania timeline. Rodan is pretty much on the side of whoever has. Yeah, Rodan, I guess you could say he's on the winning side. What he perceives as the winning side. But he's not a good guy. He kills people, he destroys things, attacks Mothra. Like, he's not a good monster. He's not a protector. And that's one thing that the trailer made clear. They said which ones are here to protect us, which ones are here to harm us. So you'll know those things just by watching a trailer. Godzilla got some much-needed human connection like Kong. He even got some world-building like him with his Lair. Oh, Lair. You know what I'm talking about. Yes, you do see Godzilla's Lair. I'm going to keep that part out of the review because that part was amazing. Like, when you find out where Godzilla resides, you're just like, wow, this is cool. And, like Living Corpse said, that involves a ton of world building in that universe in terms of where these monsters came from, and even theories of how the Earth was formed. Like, it's just a bunch of craziness that's happening right now. Rodan is like Punisher. If they do a Godzilla Pacific Rim crossover, they can have my wallet. That'd be cool. I see those as separate universes, but then again, I can't. It makes sense. Nothing really keeps it from being possible, I guess you could say. Because Pacific Rim is also monsters, but wasn't it Pacific Rim? Wasn't it aliens opening portals to bring the monsters in? Wasn't that like the actual storyline? I like old Rodan's personality better. Here, he'll fight Godzilla, but 5 minutes later, team up with him and fight a common enemy. Yeah, here, in this movie, it's more so Godzilla. Or, I'm sorry, not Godzilla. In this movie, it's more Rodan fights against Evil Monster. Evil Monster is more powerful than Rodan. Rodan respects Evil Monster and then fights good monsters. And then Rodan regrets it. So, yeah, someone, I forgot who it was, someone earlier described him as Starscream. So that's kind of a good way to portray him. And it's interesting that you can really tell, like, these monsters' personalities and what their goals are. You could tell through, like, CG monster-ishness. Like, there's technically no emotion because they're not, like, talking emotional creatures, but they do such a good job with the storytelling and how these creatures handle themselves that you know where each monster sides with, where each one sits. Godzilla vs. Chuck Norris, who will win? I don't know, man. Godzilla in this movie was very overpowered. Godzilla in this movie would annihilate Godzilla in the 2014 movie. Like, he reached a whole new level of power in this movie that we didn't even catch a glimpse of in the original one. Rodan needs to accept his place in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, and that's that spoiler. The ending is very satisfying, I'll say that. The way the fight ends and what happens immediately after a fight, when the credits happen, you're just sitting in your seat satisfied. You're like, that's exactly how I wanted it to end. Everything that happened in this movie is exactly how I wanted it to happen, and it did. So it was, I'm more than satisfied with it. They reference them. So, is this the best Godzilla of all time? See, I can't say that. Because the classics are just... I know they're rubber suits, but the classics have such a fond place in my heart. So, I can't say... Out of the new movies, I'm going to say it's the best one. And I really like Skull Island. Skull Island is awesome. Even though it's not Godzilla, but it is part of that universe. I would say there's 3 movies so far. You've got Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and then... I'm sorry, you've got Godzilla, Skull Island, and King of the Monsters. I would say the best one is King of the Monsters, Skull Island the close second because I adore that movie, and then Godzilla 2014. That movie was... Watching it now, and I watched it yesterday actually because I wanted to watch it again before seeing this one, and you could tell it was just kind of finding its footing. Like it was more like a Cloverfield kind of experiment where let's make it a human story and Godzilla's in the background, whereas this one is let's bring Godzilla and all the monsters. Let's bring Godzilla and all the monsters at the forefront. So this is what I wanted the 2014 one to be. Godzilla Finals, where it's at? That was good too. Next is King Kong vs. Godzilla. Yes, King Kong vs. Godzilla is officially the next one. I think they finished filming that movie already from what I read online. But it's definitely coming. And this movie, I'm telling you guys, this movie, they did not waste opportunity to promote Kong vs. Skull Island. Or Kong vs. Godzilla. They mentioned Kong several times. There's disturbances all over the earth. They name drop Skull Island several times. It's happening. And I'm quite happy with it. But I think that about covers everything I feel about that movie. Unless anyone else wants to chime in, what did you guys think overall? I know a lot of you have said it already, but yeah, my favorite movie of the year. I've heard some opinions from personal friends and other Godzilla fans that weren't impressed. I disagree. I disagree. Everyone's got their own opinions, but my favorite movie of the year, I was happy with it. It's everything I wanted out of a modern Godzilla movie. So I'm glad that it's... hopefully it's a success. I can't imagine it's going to lose money. I think there's going to be plenty of people to go see it. I need a sequel to Shin Godzilla. Yeah, that would be interesting. Shin Godzilla. If you haven't seen that movie, watch it. It's bizarre. It's so weird. I've never seen a Godzilla anything like it. Speaking of monsters, I remember Godzilla fought Frankenstein's monster. Yes, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I want to see this movie. Yeah, I think you'd like it, Rogue Dragon. Like, get a bucket of popcorn, watch it with a couple friends. Like, it's a good time. That's what I mean. At the very minimum, setting all expectations aside, at the very minimum, it's a really good giant monster battle action flick. So just think of the best parts of Transformers whenever the actual robot fights are going on, except with giant monsters. So, but I have to, as a hardcore Godzilla fan, I have to see it like that, and it pleased everything I wanted. Whereas the 2014 one, it did leave me wanting a lot more. Sucks we couldn't have Kong team up with 3 to fight Ghidorah. Possibly still possible in the future, I'll say that. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Possibly still possible. So we have to see. Oh, that's one thing I forgot to mention too. I don't know how they're gonna top this. Like, yeah, we're gonna see Kong and Godzilla go at it, probably against a bigger threat. But then let's come out with Godzilla 3 or King of the Monsters 2. I don't know how they're gonna top what they did in this movie. Maybe bring in all the monsters together. Maybe like another Final Wars, you know? I don't know. This movie, it went from 0 to 100 between the 2014 one and this one with the actual battles. We need Way Big vs. Godzilla. Planning on seeing it next week. Yeah, and if you guys see it, and if you have a Twitter or even Facebook messages, after you watch it, hit me up and let me know how you guys felt. I'm really curious to see how the people in this community felt about it. Because like I said, it was my favorite movie of the year. And there's been a lot of good movies this year. Shazam, Captain Marvel wasn't awful, but 5 out of 10 maybe. But Shazam was really good. Avengers Endgame was really good. But it's great having another really good movie that wasn't just a superhero flick. Bring in Gamera monsters, make a Destroy All Monster type film, I'd be down for that. What if they bring in Destroya? I'd be down for that too. We need a Godzilla game from someone like WayForward. Hell yeah, I love WayForward. They're one of my favorite game developers. I wrote a review. Yes, William Lowry, gamer guy. He writes a lot of reviews. If you have a Twitter, make sure you follow him on there. I haven't read your review yet. I will do that tonight because after this, I'm actually going to go watch a couple reviews from some other big guys that I watch. Space Godzilla for the movie. Do you think Skull Island will become Monster Island? No, I don't think so. I think Skull Island is just Skull Island in this universe. And I think it's okay to leave it like that. That's Kong's home, and it's filled with other creatures, too. So Godzilla's king of his island. Godzilla's king of all the monsters. So it's going to be really cool to see how they... And they mention in this movie because of what's happening. They're like, monsters are leaving Skull Island. Like, so maybe Godzilla is somewhere in the ocean walking around. And keep in mind... If you watch Skull Island, you might think to yourself, how the hell is Godzilla going to fight Kong? Because Kong is very small compared to Godzilla in comparison. But they make it clear that Godzilla, I keep saying Godzilla, that Kong in Skull Island was he was like a teenager, you could say. He was growing. So at his full size, he's going to be Godzilla's scale. So that's going to be really cool to see. Like, forget the Kong that was on top of the Empire State Building. This Kong is going to be the Empire State Building. So that's going to be next, and you can bet I'm going to keep up with all that on this channel. But they did make Kong huge. Yeah, they made Kong huge, but not Godzilla size in this universe. But that was a young Kong. He's growing still. Did you get that Haruo Nakajima try? Yes, I did see that. That was cool. But I guess I'll cut it off there. That's pretty much all I can really think of in terms of the review. From now, it'll just be me repeating myself. Watch it, please. And if you're a Godzilla fan, you don't watch it, you're doing yourself an enormous injustice. I'm here to restart the whole conversation, and I will have this video up as soon as possible. Probably tomorrow. I'll have it up in case you missed it. So spoilers now. I mean, I'll leave it kind of spoiler free-ish. There's not a whole lot to spoil in this movie, though. I mean, everything I talked about now, the only thing I really kind of left out of the conversation was exactly what happens at the end and what the end credit scene means. But those are things that should be experienced, and there's no answers. It's a lot of guesswork just from a fan point of view. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. Tomorrow, Mega Man NES and Mega Man 2 NES at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you guys like this style of review and want to see it for all new movies that I watch, let me know and I'll keep doing them because I like talking about these things with you guys. Also, Rambo trailer. I might do a stream talking about that soon. Rambo Last Blood. Looks awesome. But yes, I will catch you guys later. I will cut it off for now. And if you missed the stream, I'll have it up soonish. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button with all of your strength. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss any new content. You can follow me on social media or go into my community tab for updates. And for as little as $1 a month, you can support the channel directly on Patreon. This is Fabian, I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.